Welcome to Pod Me If You Can TV. Lloyd, what have you got for us? Is it obscure?
Well, this week I got a 4-pack of horror movies, and it's literally called 4 All-Night Horror Marathon. I actually plan to do most of the movies listed on this 4-pack, so please stay tuned on Pod Me If You Can TV. The movie I chose this week is The Vagrant, starring Bill Paxton and Michael Ironside. A promising businessman named Graham Kukowski moves into a new home and finds himself having to deal with a terrifying homeless man who seemingly enters the house at will. The homeless man is played by Marshall Bell. He's horribly disfigured and grunts and yells at Graham every time he sees him. The lady next door is murdered, and he expects it to be the homeless man, like the vagrant. Increasing his home security, he grows paranoid and is plagued by nightmares of him. Graham wakes up finding strange things around his house. He thinks that it actually might be himself who was performing these acts while sleepwalking. When Graham's girlfriend turns up dead, the police detective, who's played by Michael Ironside, suspects him to be the killer and arrests him. In court, Graham Kukowski's mother dies suddenly of a heart attack, and the jury finds him not guilty. Graham leaves town and finds work in a small caravan park where he handcuffs himself to a bed to make sure he won't hurt anyone. But when he wakes up to find the handcuffs cut and blood all over himself, he knows that he hasn't been sleepwalking. There is a murderer following him. Now, this film came out in 1992 and is one of the many films to have come out in the late 80s and early 90s to deal with the fear of suburban invasion. Films such as Suburban Commando, The Burbs, Home Alone, and Edward Scissorhands. It's funny, on the front cover of this, I know well you guys can see that, you got Bill Paxton holding his cheeks, with a tagline, "He's not home alone." It is a dark comedy and treads lightly between a surreal horror and a crime thriller movie. It came in at a lean 91 minutes and wastes no time to get into the horror and action. Personally, I would have liked to have seen the movie slow down, so as the paranoia begins, you can sort of go with it. The mood and atmosphere didn't work as much for me, and I blame that on the intensive pace of the movie. Bill Paxton is very good in this movie. I'm actually a Bill Paxton fan, and he's thrown around in lots of directions in this movie, and I think he holds up pretty well. If you're a fan of Bill Paxton, you should definitely check this out. I personally really like the third act of the movie, where he finds work at a caravan park. Here we see a big contrast between the corporate and suburban world of his former life. Also here you get a sense of disregard for his own life, as he wants to take on the nightmare and end it. You know, he sort of wants to face the murderer and he doesn't care about anything else. It's really good drama. The cinematography is fantastic. It gets to venture into all kinds of elements, from the surreal to the corporate world of his job, and of course to the dark climax, which I won't spoil here. The film was directed by special effects wizard Chris Wallace, who is legendary for his work on Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Gremlins, and The Fly. This is sadly the last film he ever worked on, but it is a good showcase of his talent, and there's interesting subtle use of horror and gore which was used to great effect. I think this is a very solid movie, and if you're a horror fan, you should definitely check it out. From what I understand, it's a pretty rare movie, and this is one of the only DVD releases where you can find it.
I also am a Bill Paxton fan, not as much a horror fan, but
sure.
The plot keywords for this one on IMDb, Lloyd, I don't want to spoil the ending either, but they're right in front of me. One-eyed man, stabbed in the eye, stabbed in the face, disturbed individual.
It's funny, with that character, you don't find out much about him at all till the very end, so it's interesting they put that in the tagline. He just appears as a guy grunting and yelling at him, and people are turning up dead, so you're not sure if he's in fact paranoid and he's doing it, or if the homeless man is actually a killer. It's pretty interesting, that part, but it doesn't slow down enough.
It says he questions his own sanity.
Yes.
So it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. I thought it was a very solid movie.
Nice. And the horror elements work well.
Yeah, the horror elements work well, particularly the dream sequences, where it gets all surreal and things like that. I thought it was very, very good.
All right, very nice. Maybe one to check out.
Definitely.
You can find more from us at www.podmeifyoucan.com.